My note taker. You can remove my Fathom note taker if you'd like. I can't seem to do it.
That's all right. I don't think it shows up in the recording when I edit it, so. Okay. We're gonna get started in just a moment. Thank you for the students that are attending today. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Swartz. I'm the Alumni Liaison at the School of Management. I'd like to thank you all for attending the Alumni Career Panel today. We have some great panelists here to give you college and career advice. I'll start with you, Jill. If you could just introduce yourself, let us know what major and degree you got, year of graduation, and where you're working currently.
Okay. So I'm Jill Carr. I got a BA in accounting from the School of Management in 2005. And I'm currently working as a wealth advisor for Stevens Wealth Management Group.
Thanks. Laura?
Great. My name is Laura Bell. I graduated in 2016. My major was accounting and my minor was Spanish. I unfortunately haven't used the Spanish yet, but my current position is a senior accountant role for Fessler Bowman, so I'm in the construction industry.
Great. Robert?
All right. Good morning, I guess afternoon. Rob Widigan, bachelor's. I got to earn my bachelor's degree in business administration and accounting. That was in 2014. And I'm currently the chief strategy officer in Wayne County, Michigan, which, as you may or may not know, that's Detroit and the surrounding county.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, how did you decide on your career path?
Well, I kind of let it happen to me a little bit. I have a varied career path. So I do have another bachelor's degree from Michigan Tech University. So in a former life, I was a technical writer, and then I went back to school for accounting. And originally I had gone for finance, but I really liked my accounting classes. So I ended up switching my major. And then, as every good accounting major does, you need to get your CPA, or you want to get your CPA, and so you go work for a public firm. So I did that for a few years. That was too many hours for me in public accounting. So then I refer to my career as like the Goldilocks path. So that was the too hard. And then the too soft, I went to the work for the IRS. And it was like the complete opposite, not enough to do. So I was having a little bit of a midlife crisis in my 30s. And so ended up weaseling my way into financial advising. And I love that. So I refer to that as the just right.
Yeah. Thanks, Jill. Laura?
So honestly, I started looking into being an accountant just because, like, as a kid, I had different interests, and when I had a relative that my dad told me, hey, she's a CPA, she does well, you should do this, she's in Colorado. So I took the accounting class in high school my senior year, and I enjoyed it, thankfully. Did the job shadow and stuff like that, but still, it's just such a, like, getting your feet, like, just touching in the water, you have no clue. And thankfully, I ended up liking it. I've always enjoyed numbers, and I did go into public accounting as well. That's interesting to know about you, Jill. I did go into public accounting for like 9 years before I moved into the concrete industry. So,
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, kind of like how Jill started out. I just kind of fell into it. I knew I always enjoyed government and public finance. So I was involved in government when I was young, and as I was going through school at U of M, and I took an internship, which I'm sure we'll talk about that later and how important internships are. But I ended up interning for the state of Michigan, and just honestly, like probably some of you will find out, there's pure luck in life, and they just happened to have a vacancy that they needed. That they posted right as I was ending my internship and graduating from U of M, and then from there it just kept in the world of government, and kind of did four almost 5 years at the state of Michigan, went from there into a small village, and then just kind of kept going along until I ended up where I'm at. So can't say that I would sit there and, you know, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I just knew I wanted to work in government, and it just kind of went from here.
Thanks, Rob. So Jill, you already kind of touched base on this, but were there any unexpected challenges or surprises along the way?
Well, there's always unexpected challenges. I think like one of my best pieces of career advice for the youth as an older, wiser person, is that like the ability to adapt is very crucial. Because nothing is ever going to go like the way you kind of think about it. So, if you can do your best to try to like learn skills in any position you have, and I think the other two might say this too, like why I was attracted to like business as a major is that you can do so many things with it. So, and I like a variety of things. And so being able to kind of like build your toolbox of skills that you can use to kind of pivot when things do shift, is really helpful.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
You know, Jill touched on the hours in public accounting. I didn't anticipate how many were typical, you know, so that was definitely an unexpected challenge just with, you know, you're starting your life, maybe getting married, maybe having kids, all these things, and just kind of working with that. So that was one challenge. And then also studying for the CP exam brought me unexpected challenges with meeting that timeline and life happening. And maybe we'll dive into that a little further, but those are definitely two that stick out for me.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Would definitely also agree with Jill here. Ability to adapt. I in no way, shape, or form would I think 10, 20 years ago I would be where I'm at. And it literally was just building skill set and just being able to go with the flow. But to the point, like the more you can diversify your skill set, the better you're going to be, to where, you know, it might not be in your job description, but if you're good at something and you know there's a role that needs to be filled and you can help out, half of my job is that. You know, I don't half the things I do might not be in my job description, but it's just I have experience in that, or I've done that before and I can assist, and that's just, you just kind of go with the flow. I think those are the biggest things, is really just be flexible, you know, and be open to wherever your path might take you, because you might have a charted plan, and that's good. I'm not saying that's not good, but 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to deviate from that in ways you don't expect.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, do you have any advice you would like to provide students as they approach graduation and prepare for future careers?
Ooh, that is a good one. I think Rob talked about an internship, and I think like that is key. If you still have time kind of to do that before you graduate, it does open a lot of doors and gives you experience, you know, like number one, just having it gives you something to put on your resume for future employers. And number two, it might lead to a permanent job anyway, because a lot of companies like interns and use that as a way to kind of, as a farm to, you know, get their future employees. They can see how you work. There's a definitive end date. So like, you can see if it's a good fit on either side. So if you don't like it, and along that lines, like it's the best way to kind of figure out if you actually like the thing you're gonna want to go into. So definitely try to find an internship. I would say like most people are wanting to be helpful. So like if you have no prospects or whatever, if you just kind of go on LinkedIn and look for people that have a job title that you want, or are at companies you want, and you just kind of ask them, you know, connect with them and ask them if you can talk to them for a little bit, ask them some questions, you know, just don't come at it like, please give me a job, you know, just approach it as networking, like get to know them and ask them to kind of, you know, would you be able to answer a few questions for me? Most people will agree to that. So you can kind of use that as a way to at least get some information about what your future employers might be looking for or what career choices you have available, that kind of thing. So use LinkedIn and get an internship.
Yeah, I was gonna say off of that, we have a LinkedIn student alumni group. There's about 600 on there. So if you're a student on this call and you want to go, join that group, feel free to reach out to our alumni. They're pretty approachable. So if you want to start researching that way, I would start in that group. Okay, Laura?
Yeah, I would agree with getting the experience, all of everything that was said, but make as many connections as you can, meaningful connections. I know for me, I was super involved when I was in like K-12, and then once I got to college, I just kind of coasted. I went into class, I didn't really, and I'm a people person, but I'm just like, I'm here to like learn, get my A or B, whatever, and leave. And so then senior year, I started joining Beta Alpha Psi and things, and I was thinking, man, I should have done this sooner. And I mean, those are classmates and colleagues that you can stay connected with throughout the rest of your careers. And honestly, one of my friends that I worked with at one of the CPA firms, we were in classes together, and I was just always in and out, and I never actually made friends with her. We didn't sit by each other, but we became really good friends after we were in the same CPA firm working on the same things. And we're still connected now. I talked with her last week. So you can connect with people on that level very well. And don't be afraid to take a job during college too. Like if there's time, I worked at a small accounting firm for 3 years of my college experience. And that's where I really learned my debits and credits. And I am so grateful for that. My boss for his patience, because that prepared me to be ready once I got my degree and take on the role that I took at that point. So
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, a lot of what's been said. So internships, LinkedIn. When I graduated, LinkedIn, I don't know, might have been around, but I really wasn't using it then. And so I think it was key to connect with professors. Kind of like Laura, I too did not get involved in Beta Alpha Psi till later. Wish I had got more involved in organizations earlier in my time at UM-Flint. But yeah, connecting with professors, because 9 times out of 10, they're very open and willing to give you advice. When I was there, they used to have like professor panels, and they would bring in like outside experts to speak with the professors. Try to hit those up. Those are really helpful. And then any kind of I think I mentioned organizations, but then just networking. So, I mean, sometimes your professors will know of local networking events that you can go to. There's obviously alumni events, which are really helpful. And I think that was really key for me.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so the School of Management will pay for students to go to the Flint Chamber luncheons every month. So
Nice.
if you guys have my email, go ahead. Any student on the call that wants to attend those, and those are good networking events. So Jill, what were some helpful resources you used on campus?
I think Beta Alpha Psi was a good resource, to kind of second what the others said, getting involved with that. I will second the networking thing. Guess I'm not sure what stuff there is nowadays other than Beta Alpha Psi, but like the more to echo Laura, the more connections you have, the more someone who knows someone, might be having the perfect job for you, so just putting yourself out there. And I know it's hard sometimes, especially as accountants tend to be introverted and we don't like to talk to people. We like to get in and out of class, but just, kind of, getting out of your comfort zone and talking to people, and connecting, you never know what opportunity is going to be out there for you. So.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I enjoyed the job fairs. That's where I got my first job after college, was from the job fair that happens in March. The panels, things like this, whenever there were interviews on campus, maybe one of the firms was coming. You might have a job that you apply for and you don't get, but it's interview experience. And that did happen for me. I didn't get the first one I applied for. But it really helped me to gain confidence and kind of know what to expect in that arena.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, what was said, and then also I can't think of the proper title, but what Antonio Riggs does or
Mhm.
used to do when I was there. Career services where, helped me find internships, also helped me find possible job postings, you know, uh, campus events and networking are key, which we've said, but those clubs and organizations like Laura and I both said it, we started that kind of late, and it would have been nice to have started it earlier, just to kind of really get your foot in the door with especially if you want to say local businesses for sure.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, how did U of M-Flint help you prepare for your job in your field?
Well, I do think the accounting curriculum was good, although I will say that the transition from like school to the real world was abrupt, and I do think you learn a lot on your job. So you get kind of the basic foundations and things when you're going to school, and you do have to memorize concepts and things that will help you. And so it's important, and you obviously learn how to study and make connections and do all that. But I do think that it is still like very different when you're getting your first job, and you're like, this is nothing at all what I learned. So.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I would agree that it was different, doing the different simulations in class, great curriculum and all that. But to be able to remember it and actually do it in practice, obviously, depending on what level you're being hired in at, they're going to be very, understanding and helpful and just right alongside you until you get it, take lots of notes. But specifically for the CPA exam, my audit class, which I know the professor isn't there anymore, but the curriculum for the audit really prepared me for my exam. That was the first exam I took, and I did the best on that one. So that was wonderful. I really appreciated that. And yeah, I think something else crossed my mind, but I can't think at the moment. So that's all.
If it comes back to you, let us know.
Sure.
Rob?
I would say like working with diverse teams, to address in some classes to address complex issues. That was really key. That's kind of key to effective government service. So that really helped. And then also I remember some of the classes emphasize practical real world problem solving. So like they would, try to take a case study and work it out together as a class. But then also like the ability to do community engagement. I mean, there's obviously nothing wrong with going to a larger college, but kind of when maybe if you go to Ann Arbor, I took classes there too. You kind of get lost in like the city of the campus where U of M-Flint is in the heart of downtown Flint. And so there's, like Anna said, they pay to go to chamber lunches. So there's a lot of community engagement if that would be beneficial to your career that you have opportunities to get involved in.
Thanks, Rob.
I did
Jill?
think of it. Sorry if you.
No, you're all right.
So accounting information systems, that class, I didn't like, I have not used XBRL, I will be honest, but QuickBooks, I had already been exposed at my previous job, and I did use that a lot in my first 2 jobs in public accounting. So yeah, that was really helpful.
Thanks, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, what were some of your favorite classes?
Yeah, so I liked finance. Obviously, I'm in finance now. I really liked management accounting. At one point, I thought I really wanted to go into that. And I liked tax. I've always been a tax person. So I remember our instructor was a guy from the IRS. I don't know if he's still there, but and it was just interesting that I ended up going into the IRS later. So yeah.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
One of my favorites was operations management. I remember we had a project that I don't remember the whole, scenario, but my boss at the time let us reorganize our office based on my suggestions from the class. So that was really cool. I loved my audit class, and I did keep connection with the professor that I had. So I enjoyed that. And like I said, the accounting information system, I enjoyed the QuickBooks portion of it.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Oddly enough, has nothing to do with what I do now, but sports economics with Chris Douglas was absolutely my favorite class. I've had so many conversations in actual real life where I reference back to what I learned in sports econ, such as how did the Little Caesars Arena down in Detroit that was built, with tax dollars, and kind of breaking that down and explaining it was pretty interesting.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. Jill, what was your most proud moment from your U of M-Flint experience?
Oh, I mean, probably graduating. Because at the point you get to just want it to be done and get it over with, and get onto the real world. So I'd probably say that.
That's a big one. Laura?
This is a hard question. I would say being able to finish with highest honors. Yeah, I didn't really think of that one too much.
That's okay. Rob?
Yeah, when I looked over your questions, that was the one I was like, how do I answer it? Probably getting that internship. I was definitely had no intention of doing an internship. Like, I didn't have to do an internship. And I was talking to Antonio Riggs, and he's like, well, here's this position that's been posted, and no one's even interested in it. Yeah, I think because that's kind of what catapulted me in the career field or career path that I ended up taking.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, what do you know now that you wish you knew during your time at U of M-Flint?
Oh, that is a good question. So I guess going back to what people said, getting involved with things earlier, because at first you're just kind of figuring yourself out, and you're just trying to get your classes done and get those credits and stuff. And so you're not really thinking too much about like what else. So the thing that I'm trying to do with like my kids and stuff is get them to think about that things earlier, and make those connections earlier, join the groups earlier. Get your LinkedIn profile up there, doing all that stuff kind of before, your senior year. So.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
In correction, it might have been high honors. I don't know. It's been a while. But I would say I always felt comfortable with Excel, but I didn't really dive into like pivot tables and stuff like that. And so I could hold my own, but I honestly didn't really dive into pivot tables until my current job. And it's like making my life so much easier, and just simple things like using the subtotal feature and stuff, which weren't as necessary at my previous roles, but now it makes my life so much easier, and it would look great on a resume to say, yeah, I'm comfortable with this stuff. So that's one thing I probably would have dived in a little more during college.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Honestly, Excel. I mean, maybe I'm late in telling you this because AI, but seriously, like it's so much easier to learn it when you're in college, especially if you have some professors that are really strong in it. Because now, like, people who are deeply vested in Excel, like they can get a job and kind of do anything in just like the finance office. So it's really key. But then also, again, just hitting those like making the connections early, because I don't think I did that till the last 2 years of college.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, we're gonna transition to a little bit about qualifications. And Jill, what do employers look for in new graduates?
Yeah, willingness to learn new things. The ability, like, and the people skills, the soft skills of things, like if you have some leadership qualities, or, someone mentioned before about working in groups. I mean, group projects are like life, everything you do. And I remember not liking group projects in college, but like, they don't go away. You will have group projects for the rest of your life in whatever job you have. So being able to kind of get along with different people, because those soft skills are hard to learn. You can't like teach them. So we can teach someone how to use the software at work, and how we want this process to be done. But kind of coming already to the table with ability to adapt and quick learner, those kind of things, able to work with people and not throw fits. Those are skills that are very welcomed.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
Willingness to learn was the first thing I thought of for this. You definitely don't want to come in like overconfident. I know this. But you also want to be humble enough to ask for help. Like, hey, I know you probably thought this I would be done maybe within an hour or two, but I kind of need some help. Could you help me? Because that's like the worst thing, to just spin your wheels and waste time. And then one other thought I had was just having a good attitude and being willing to work with others, like, what Jill said, because I didn't love group projects, but in every aspect of life with your work, at least, you are going to be, like for me, my role, I'm overall accounting, but my roles overlap with the payroll department, the payables department, the receivables department, the project management department. Like, so there's different people that I maybe have to answer to at different times, or reports I'm preparing, or relying on, so, just being able to talk with them and not attack, but just say, hey, this is what I'm needing. What do you need? And how can we work together? So that's helped me in my role. And I think any new hire it'd be helpful for you to have those kind of skills.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, I'll be really blunt here with this one, and it's just be willing to show up and ready to help. No matter what your title is, I'm a C-suite executive. If you don't think I'm getting in the weeds and like doing sometimes payables and stuff that would be an entry-level job, you're gonna have a rude awakening. Like you really got to be able to just help out. I mean, I'll be on calls with other people in our team, and I'm taking notes because we don't have maybe an executive assistant to take notes. So I'm just, yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, for those that have been in the hiring position, or maybe if you haven't, still might have some advice. What are some do's and don'ts of resumes and interviewing?
Oh yeah, great question. So, this is your chance to kind of shine before employers. So dress well, look your best. Look for spelling errors on your resume. We still get some with typos and stuff, double, triple check those things. I won't necessarily like throw out a resume with a typo, but it will stick in my head. I'm like, oh, so you didn't double check this, and confidence really can help in your interview. But like Laura said, when you show up to the job, don't be overconfident. But we want you to be confident in the interview because we want you to kind of bring a sense to the table that you have skills, that you can do this job, and that that you want to. I don't think it's inappropriate to ask for the job and say, I'm really interested in this job, because we also want to know, that counts for something. Like if you really want to be here, as opposed to someone else who might be more aloof. So.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I agree with all of that. Make sure you're coming early, 10 or 15 minutes early. For me, at least, I probably talk fast sometimes. So just if you're one of those people, just remember to slow down and have that confidence, you know, like there's that balance of being humble and everything, but you're in an interview, they want to know about you. So don't be afraid to talk about yourself. And obviously, and they'll be able to sense your tone. But think about those things ahead of time that, you know, there's questions online of, you know, common questions, right? On Google. Try to go through those and rehearse them and just kind of think about if you were an employer, what would you want to know about you, right? Before hiring, you know, when you're comparing other candidates. And I know there's some hard questions like your biggest, help me out here. Like not your flaw, but you know, I'm trying to think,
Like
your weakness, your
weakness?
weaknesses or your strengths. Yeah. And I, you know, we can always think about strengths, but sometimes it's hard to think about our weaknesses. And honestly, I feel like where I'm at now, like, in my low or very low 30s, that I'm actually can recognize like, wow, that is something that I could bring up in an interview because it's kind of just, you know, it takes sometimes a little bit of time to be able to learn more about yourself. When they say you're finding yourself or whatever, it's kind of true. And I didn't believe it, but I'm learning like, okay, I sometimes take on too much, right? Or, you know, I think I have too much time and I need to prioritize, you know, which you can see it in different parts of life. So just really think about yourself and really be confident, but be humble, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Rob?
I'll keep the bluntness going. So, you know, one, we are all like all of us on this call and people who you're going to be interviewing with, we're all incredibly busy. So be concise and to the point. So my personality, I can't think of the test name, but my personality results came out with me. You have to be bright, be brief, be gone. So in other words, come in, know what you want to talk about, have an agenda, and then get out of my hair. But like, don't ramble in your interview. You're gonna lose my attention after you've been speaking for 3 or 4 minutes. If it takes you 3 or 4 minutes to answer one question, I'm checking my emails or something. Don't ramble in your resume either. So we, you know, to Joe's point, you know, proofread that, check it out. Don't ramble, be to the point and concise because you only have a couple seconds to get my attention. I will be honest, I found AI has been very helpful in like you know, making like a rambling email more concise for me or my resume. Have a professor or a contact or a networking contact proofread your resume and ask them to just redline the heck out of it. Like you don't want someone to just be, oh yeah, it looks great. Like, no, like tell me where it sucks, tell me where it's good, you know. And keep that, like I think keep that resume short. I've been in the field for 20 years now, and my resume just now has gone past 1 page. So up until now, it's only been 1 page. I've had quite a variety of positions. And then also, if you're in an interview, please be sure you know your facts. I've interviewed someone where they read our audit and they misrepresented fund balance to me in an interview, and they're interviewing to be the budget director. And I was close to ending the interview there. Like, don't know your stuff. Don't try to BS it because probably the person you're interviewing is going to know you're faking it. Sorry if that was too blunt, but
No, it's fine. It's all right. Okay, Jill, what sort of questions should an interviewee ask an interviewer? Like some in-depth questions that are good to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I always like it when people do some homework before the interview and kind of check out the website. You might comment on something that looks new, like, oh, you know, I see you're doing this new project or service or whatever. Can you tell me about that? It lets me know you've done a little bit of homework before this. I think it's okay to ask, like I've had people ask me, and I thought this was a good question. The interviewees, like, what do you like about your job? And, you know, what does your day-to-day look like? Or can you describe like what my day-to-day would look like if it's a different position and stuff, you know, so kind of turn it back on the interviewer, getting them to open up and tell you more about the company and maybe some of the culture.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I would agree. I know for me, I was asking about the work-life balance and like what that looked like for my current position. as we kind of alluded to earlier, and not to scare anyone away from public accounting, everyone has a different fit, and it might be for a season, or maybe you want to go partner track. But when I left public accounting, my main reason was work-life balance, right? So, and you want to make sure that this new role is a good fit for you just as much as they want to make sure it's a good fit for the company. So ask them, maybe ask them what their turnover is like, or maybe ask them about the benefits that are offered, or how much vacation time is offered. Like, get all the things that maybe are important to you on the table, just so that you can make a good decision if they were to offer you the role.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
So for questions that I think you should ask is really, I actually pulled the questions I asked in my last interview. And so sometimes you'll get an interview and they'll end with, you know, when do you anticipate knowing more, which I think is a good question to ask, but don't make that your first question. I really kind of pushed in on them, like, because you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So I obviously asked, like, how will reporting structure work? So if I'm gonna, you know, at the time I was applying to be the CFO, like, will the CFO have direct access to the CEO? I asked them, what do you see as working well in the department I was interviewing for, and what do you see as an area that really needs to be improved upon? And then I actually made them answer a question. So I asked them, hey, look, if I'm offered this position, I want to talk with some individuals within the organization, within like the finance team, if that's who you're interviewing for, specifically someone that's been there for 3 or more years, then someone that's been there for 1 to 3 years, and someone that's been there for less than a year. And I wanted to know exactly what they would do, what their first thing is they would do if they were offered the position. So try to come up with like some, you know, even if it's what's your philosophy on leadership, or what's the day to day like, what do you see as the day to day like being in this role? Like, try to make them think. And then, you know, if you're like, well, you know, Laura, as Laura said, work life balance, and they answer day to day is going to be 10 hours, 10, 12 hours a day. Well, you probably don't want that job if work life balance is number one for you, you know. So it's your opportunity to interview the interviewer.
Thanks, Rob.
And the better your questions, there has been interviews where I was completely blown away by their questions and took a chance on them, and I did not regret it.
Thanks. Jill, just to give some insight for students, can you describe your hiring process? Like, how many interviews did you complete before being hired? How long did it take? How many people were in the room?
Yeah. I mean, with this job, we've had a couple hires that didn't go so well. So we've kind of revamped our hiring process, and it's very expensive. So I feel bad for people who interview with us. So, I mean, typically it starts with a phone screen with our chief operating officer. You know, so if you apply, she will call you and kind of ask you some questions over the phone, get a feel for, you know, do you have the qualifications we're looking for? And then you come in and you typically meet with at least 2 people, possibly 3. And we all have different questions that we're asking the candidate. And then I think like one question is the same. I don't know, to compare how they answer differently or something. So, and then there might be one more final interview with our president. So like, you know, we put you through the ringer. And I feel like this is, you know, when I've talked to some other people too, it's a process. It's not just a one interview and done. You know, in the past with other positions I've had, like where you interview with several different people, and then you have maybe like they take you to lunch with some of the people that might be your peers, and they kind of get a feel for like, are you a weirdo as a person? You know, so how are you going to interact with people? So, you know, a lot of times I think the interview is pretty extensive, because it does cost a lot to hire a new person, and you want that person to be the right fit. So you want to make sure you ask all of your questions and get all of the answers before you hire them.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I think I just had 2 interviews. I know the first one was a phone screening. And then the second one was with 2 HR people and who would have been my boss as well. So just 3 people in the interview.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, I'll go back to like when I started at the state right out of U of M. Phone screening. It was a little bit unique because I was already there as an intern. But interview panel with I think three people, so that can be kind of practice with that. That can be a little intimidating when well, I don't know if you walk in a room anymore. It might be on Zoom, but either way, you're probably going to have to answer to a panel. And let's see, phone screening, interview panel, and then Jill had mentioned like if you go out to lunch or something, that's definitely an interview. They want to see how you interact with the server, how do you interact with everyone around you. Like if the server screws up your order and you bite their head off, probably not going to bode well for you. So treat everything like they're kind of, so to speak, judging you and your actions.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, do you have any professional failures you'd like to share and how you overcame them?
Oh, geez. No. No, I'll think of something. Maybe come back to me. Let me think
Okay,
about
Laura?
I do. I mentioned earlier studying for the CPA exam. So if any of you are accounting majors and you've looked into it a little bit, they give you 18 months, and it took me 2 years. So I unfortunately, and this was during life happening, right? I had my first kiddo and just had some things. My grandmother passed away. There's a lot going on and hard decisions. Do I study? Do I be with family? Have my baby and a baby carrier. And so getting that last score was very traumatic, if I'm honest, because I missed it by 1 point. Like I got a 74, you needed a 75. So that made it that much harder. So for me, how I overcome that and how my employer at the time helped, thankfully, the firm I worked for paid for my exams and they paid for them. If I had to retake it, they were paying for it. I still got a paid day off when I was out of the office. I'm working for a firm right at this time, so they want CPAs. So that was helpful. They also provided the resources. I reached out to Becker to see if they could extend my subscription because that was also for 18 months. And thankfully they did for the exam that I needed to take. So that was helpful. And I just set it in my mind that I was going to do it and honor my granny at that point, really, because I found out right around the time of her funeral, and it was just like, man, all the time I've missed, like just again balancing that work-life balance was difficult. But it took me the extra 6 months to retake my first exam, which was audit, and I wasn't worried about that. I was just mad that I didn't get to keep my first good score, and then retake the one that I had missed. So that's definitely a failure, but again, it's part of life. Wasn't easy, but it's inevitable that we're going to run into things and just kind of what are we going to do with it? And you're your biggest critic or your biggest cheerleader, right? So if you believe you can, just keep at it. And if it's meant to happen, you can still make it happen.
Thanks for sharing, Laura. Rob?
I would have to say probably not getting my MBA when I was like right after getting my bachelor's, because there's never like I just thought, well, I'll get my foot in the door and start my career, and I don't technically need it now, but I really would like my MBA, and there's no time where it's like, oh, this is a great time to go back to school. Like it's always going to suck, like especially as you're adult, as life does what life does. So I would definitely say not doing that, or maybe not, if not MBA, my CPA, not going for the CPA license when I was younger, because now it's, what's the hour requirement? I can't remember, but trying to figure, find time to do that. I can't just tell my job, hey, I'll see you later. Like I'll come back in a bit. So yeah, if life permits, I would recommend doing what you think you might want to do sooner rather than waiting.
I thought of
Thanks.
one.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, we make mistakes here at work, people are human, everybody makes mistakes. I'm lucky that I don't work in like the medical field and no one will die because of our mistakes, you know, but sometimes there's like a money lot, like if we didn't get a trade in when we should have, and now the market has shifted, you know, we make the client whole. So like we eat the loss if we have to do something, you know? And so there's been times where we had a trade error and we have to fix something. And I think, you know, most people don't necessarily care about the mistake, they care about the solution. So like if you do make a mistake, I've always owned up to my mistakes. You know, number one, figure it out as soon as possible. And number two, figure out a way to fix it. Because that's really what people care about is like, how is it getting fixed? You know, and once it is, then everyone can move on. And like I beat myself up forever, but you know, like most people forget about it if it's not their own mistake. So
Thanks, Jill. Can you describe your typical day? When I ask this, people say they don't have a typical day, but can you describe your day?
I mean, I do have things that recur a lot. So like I'm a financial advisor, so I meet with clients a lot. So a typical day will have several client meetings where we're going over, you know, their accounts and we focus on the whole financial picture. So, you know, we're going to talk about their estate planning and their insurance and, you know, are there any things that we should be doing? And like right now at the end of the year, if we're meeting with clients, it's a little bit of tax planning, you know, is there something we need to do? Do we need to get contributions in before the end of the year? That kind of thing. Or like take some tax losses on their investment accounts. But yeah, so meeting with clients and then a lot of times the follow-up to that. So do they need to open a new account? So I need to tell my assistant to get forms to them. And then we need to fund it or are they going to make a Roth conversion before the end of the year? And then we have to do some follow-up and analysis on that. So a lot of meeting with clients, so preparing for those meetings and then having the meetings and then follow up to the meetings.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
My day does have quite a bit of variety. I don't travel much. I'm in the office. Normally, we do have a hybrid policy, so that's kind of sprinkled in there a little bit too. But thankfully, like my tasks are pretty regular in terms of their frequency, right? So I have, you know, monthly deadlines, quarterly deadlines, annual. And so with knowing what all of my tasks are, I can prioritize my day as I see fit or my week. So I just kind of use my Outlook a lot to figure out when I'll have the time to work on things, knowing that other tasks may be thrown on my desk that may make that not possible for the time being. But as long as I meet all my deadlines, I really like the variety of being able to manage my own day and my own week. And or even if I have time off, you know, I'll talk with my boss and tell her, hey, I know I'm requesting to be off at this time. That's kind of busy, but these are the dates I'm planning to have as a target to make sure I meet all of my deadlines. And that has worked well for us.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Sorry, I was muted. Kind of to what Anna said, it is hard to say what my typical day's like. I do know I go in, you know, I have a general plan of what I want to get done for the day, what I want to get done for the week, what I want to get done for a month. And 9 times out of 10, you might sit there at the end of the month and see, I got 2 out of the 7 things done on my list. But I think it's really important and crucial to track the things you do get done. So you might get sidetracked and work, you know, you got only 2 things done on your list, but you got these other 4 things accomplished. So that's good because if you just constantly are saying, oh, I didn't get my to-do list done, it gets a little overwhelming. But other than that, I do have, you know, there are year ends, like year-end audit has to be done, annual budget has to be created and submitted. So there are the staple, like this is what I have to do, but then my day to day, it really can vary. Like today, I technically have today off, and I ended up having to be on 2 work calls. So kind of back to what I said in the beginning, you got to go with the flow.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Jill, what do you like best about your job? What is the most satisfying part of your job?
The most satisfying part is when you meet with a client and they are like, thank you, this is so helpful. Or like, really one of the best satisfying parts is when you can tell someone that they can retire earlier than they had planned. That everything's gonna work out and they're not gonna run out of money. Like in fact, you've done so well that I think you could retire, today, so that's probably some of the best parts of my job.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
This sounds like really nerdy, but I'm really into Excel. So whenever, and I love being able to like with the operations management side, being able to make processes smoother or more efficient. So if I get a task that's like daunting and it takes way too long and I hate it, it's so satisfying to be able to figure out how we can do the same thing much quicker. This is what Excel did for me, cut my time in half. Like I do have a couple of things that I've been able to automate that I can think of right now that it's such a breeze and I love that.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
I'm sorry. I told the panel before I started I was up most of the night. So what was the original question? I'm a little foggy.
So, what do you like most about your job? What's the most satisfying parts of your job?
I work in government, so I'm not in it for the money. So I just enjoy, like, I can go back to all the previous positions I've had and see like where there's been actual tangible difference, even if it's simply to what Laura said, making processes better and making improvements like that help your colleagues. That's great. Or actually seeing stuff that benefits the community be put into place. That's definitely the most rewarding part.
Thanks, Rob. So I have one more question, then I'll ask for some final pieces of advice, but how do you practice work-life balance, Jill?
Oh, well, you gotta constantly keep up on that. I feel like it's hard. And there's never such a thing as like equal balance. Sometimes you're gonna be more focused on work and you just have a lot going on. And so your life part of the balance goes down. And then other times, I'm lucky with my job that I have a lot of flexibility in terms of time. And so if I have to take my kids to all different appointments and stuff, or leave early because one of them is sick, I can do that. So, and then work falls a little bit, down the scale. So it's a constant teeter-totter that you're riding, but I think if you are lucky enough to have some flexibility in your job, then you just kind of got to go with the flow, as people have said before.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I think for me, part of it is just setting your boundaries and not being afraid to stick to them. We all have different priorities and what seasons we're in, but if you find a job that's flexible and works with you, just if your goal is to make sure that you're not missing things, like whether it's your kids have sports or whatever, then make sure that's clear when you're talking with your boss so that, and you're getting your work done, right? Because and like Jill said, sometimes it's never going to just be this perfect thing. But I think for me, like it may not be popular, right? But I don't check my emails or anything like that, or my work phone. I don't even look at it when I'm not at work, unless it's like I'm off on a Friday and I told them hey, I'm trying to be flexible. But other than that, once I leave, I'm enjoying my family and my weekend.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, to what Jill said, like there's ebbs and flows. In my position, I don't, I do lose some control of that life balance, but I do have a job where we get, again, government does have great benefits. So I get a lot of time off. And so I will just, be like, man, I haven't taken a day off in 4 weeks. So I'm just gonna take this Friday off. So try to listen to yourself and you're like, I'm tired, I need a day off or half a day or whatever. But yeah, my position is a little bit unique. Like I said, I took a couple work calls before today and it's my day off. It just kind of is what it is. It usually will work out. Um, like nowadays we have hybrid remote work. So tomorrow I'll probably be remote. Um, when I normally be in the office. So but yeah, try to take care of yourself, but then also do understand that sometimes in this day and age, sometimes your life balance does drop, and you, depending on the job you take, sometimes you have to be okay with that.
Thanks, Rob. Jill, do you have any final advice for our students?
I think I've said most of it. My other thing would be don't burn bridges. So how I got back at the firm I'm at now is I had worked while I was going to school for my degree. I worked at this as like an assistant. So and I was a good worker, and like I totally weaseled my way into a position that they didn't have available, just by them remembering that I was a good employee, and they kind of squeezed me in. So don't burn bridges. You never know when it's going to come around, and you might rely on that connection again. So.
Thanks, Jill. Laura?
I would say, put your best foot forward, continue to make those connections. Don't be afraid to try something new or to pivot out of a position. And if you are in a position and it's like, don't be afraid to talk with your boss if it's, not really seeming like what you thought, or maybe your expectations aren't being met. Like, really talk with them, right? To make sure it's still a good fit. You never know where it could go from there just by having open communication.
Thanks, Laura. Rob?
Actually, I liked what Jill said with don't burn bridges, because not only you might find yourself in a position to where you want to go back to where you left, but also like you do not know who your colleagues or boss knows, and word of mouth can really bite you in the, you know what. So don't do that, but also, to Laura's point, like, don't be afraid to have open and honest conversations with your boss. I know I feel like I'm telling you two opposite things, but then also, like I said, be willing to roll up your sleeve and work, even if it's not in your job description, because that will really go a long ways. Like if you're showing to be a person who you don't care if if it's a task nobody else wants to do and you step up and do it, like that will reward you in the long run, for sure. So
Thanks, Rob. So this concludes our career panel. I'd like to thank Jill, Laura, and Rob for their great advice. And I'd like to thank the students that attended today. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.